Hello gamers, Powered Heal here, and today we're going to be talking about Molten Core BiS for Priests in Classic WoW Phase 1. So we'll kind of get right into this and I'll explain how we're going to do it. And like I said before, I did make 2 precursor videos that'll help you guys understand maybe some of the decisions for this video. I will link them in the description. Basically talk about the methodology behind how we evaluate items. And how we calculate and assess how good plus healing is specifically. But how we're going to do this video is I'm going to put what I think is basically like the actual BiS here, and we're going to still go through everything and talk about it. And then I have like a secondary profile where I'm going to talk about stuff that you don't really need to upgrade right away and kind of like the things that you want to focus on, in my opinion, to really maximize the most out of your how much loot you can get out of MC, because unlike with the pre-BiS, where you basically can run the instances as many times as you want to get everything, there's going to be definite loot scarcity here, so you're not going to be able to get everything that you want, and there's certain things that are much better than other things. So yeah, let's kind of delve into this and see what we can get, right? So basically, we'll start at the top here with Halo Transcendence. So this is obviously by far the best item in the phase. It's not even close. The only thing is that it drops from Onyxia. Onyxia is like a 5-day reset, right? So you're going to be doing it more often than MC. It's really easy to do. It drops 2 helms every time. And if you're on Alliance, this is going to be a little bit more annoying to get because you have more priests, but on Horde, it should be super easy to get. So even though this is a really good item, I don't think it should be prioritized super highly, especially for Horde priests. But, you know, as Alliance priests, it is a super strong item when you get it, and I understand wanting to get it somewhat early. So maybe it moves up on your prio a little bit, but it's still not something that I would, like, super focus on because it's just going to be so available in the long term, most likely, right? And you do kind of want to plan a little bit for the long term with some of this stuff. Moving on to the next slot, the Choker of Enlightenment. So technically the BiS is Choker of the Fire Lord, but you're never going to get this because it's like caster. It's like hard BiS for casters, and it's from Rag. So this is kind of like the next best thing, but it's not really that much better than Animated Chain or the Tooth right here. So I would not put this on a very high prio. As you see, like I have you still using the Tooth right over here. And I would just get this if it kind of comes to you, right? You don't want to sacrifice prio for it at all. How easily this is going to be to get just depends kind of how many casters are in your raid, right? Because they're probably going to want this as well. And yeah, if you don't have many casters, it's going to be easy. If you have quite a few casters, you're probably not going to see it because it's not that common. But don't really worry about it either way. If it comes to you, take it. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. So going to the shoulder slot, I think these are technically the BiS shoulders for the phase, but it's very close between these and the Mantle of the Scarlet Crusade. Obviously the int buff is nice, and the int trade-off is well worth the plus healing trade-off. It's just that it's not significant enough to be like, oh wow, I really need that item first, if that makes sense, right? This is another item that, especially on Horde, is going to come to you very easily because there's not a lot of priests in the raid, but also this item tends to drop quite a bit from the boss, which is it's like the guy before Major Domo and the one before Golemag, Sulfuron, I believe. So it's pretty easy to get this item in most cases, so don't really fuss over it. And yeah, that's pretty much that. Going into the Cloak slot, so this is an interesting one. It's a pretty common drop from Onyxia, I would say, and it's by far the best Cloak in Phase 1, but it being the best Cloak doesn't really matter that much because it's a Cloak and it doesn't really contribute that much to your overall stats, right? So it's the best in class, but it's not like super great overall. That being said, it's definitely something you probably want to pick up eventually, but like I said, you do multiple Onyxias a week. Casters are disadvantaged in this version of the game, so you know you're going to get just more caster loot. by nature, and yeah, like this should come to you over time. Basically, you don't really have to go out and make an effort for this. I wouldn't put this high prio at all. Just something that you definitely want to pick up and add in when it does become available to you. So kind of similar to the choker up here, but I'd say a little bit higher prio than that. The chest. So this is going to be the most controversial pick on this list so far, and this is probably, if you want to know the thought process behind this fully, you probably want to watch the video on is plus healing overrated. But I will say that this chest slot, in my opinion, is kind of like a three-way race. I think Robes of the Exalted, True Faith, and Prophecy are all very strong options here. I personally tend not to think that it's worth it to go for True Faith. It's like a pretty good item, but it's not like insane by any means, especially like just like the amount of investment you're going to have to go through early to get it. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I really don't like this item as soon as you get Blackwing Lair unlocked, honestly, because I think at that point the discrepancy between this item and the tier 2 chest is basically non-existent. I don't know if I can show that right here. Maybe I already have this hammered in, so let's see if we can we edit? Yeah, we'll just edit this really quick. We'll do phase 3, and we're not going to put the rest of phase 3 gear in, but I just want to show you guys. Did it not work? Oh, I think I have to hit save. Okay, yeah. Okay. So this sheet actually has it higher, but a lot of people actually rank this better than Robe of Transcendence on like BiS lists and stuff, and it's just not really true, because basically you're getting like, by the time you have Robe of Transcendence, you will have 3-piece tier 2 most likely, which means that your spirit value, if you remember from the spirit video we just did, or the equivalence video, where we talk about stats and how to analyze gear and stuff like that, we calculated spirit at like 10 spirit to 1 MP5, but that's without the additional 15% of your mana regeneration to continue while casting, right? It's the moment you get that, it actually drops down to like 5, basically, right? Because you've essentially doubled it. So now it's like 5 spirit is equal to 1 MP5 or somewhere around there, 5 to 6, right? So you basically are getting 3 MP5 just from the spirit alone, right? You're missing a very small amount of plus healing. You're gaining close to 30 intellect, and you get to use this as like a set piece for your 3 set, right? So it gives you more flexibility in terms of how you want to swap pieces around and stuff like that. So this, in my opinion, is just way better than True Faith, which means that True Faith loses some value. It's obviously, going to be a good item to rush early, but with just how easy Robes of the Exalted is to get, and people generally not wanting Robes of Prophecy, I just don't think it's really that great of an item overall, and it's not worth the investment. So I will not be getting Robes of Prophecy, True Faith Vestments. I will most likely be sticking with Robes of the Exalted. If I can get a Robes of Prophecy, I will, but I'm not going to go out of my way. I think it's wasted prio early on. And as you can see, I have Robes of the Exalted just listed here as something that I would use just normally. The one thing that may incentivize you to get this a little bit more than normal is if you're about to get the 5 set. I think that it definitely, this with the 5 set, if this is what's bringing you to 5 set, then I think it's better than Robes of the Exalted, kind of like slightly, but if you're not getting the 5 set with it, I think the Robes of the Exalted are just fine, and you can keep them for a while until you kind of eventually stumble upon getting this, right? So it's something I'd want to get eventually, but not super big on it. Like I'm not really that worried about it that much. Now coming into the bracer slot, this item in my opinion is actually quite good. It's a clear upgrade over the any of the other options in the phase, especially given how this classic is rolling out, right? Because we're not getting things like Dire Maul or any of the other really strong items early. So this is a very strong item, especially relative to the time you get it at. And it's kind of a rare item. It's not really something you're going to see on the auction house, in my opinion, even though it's a BOE, because a lot of people who are going to be getting this are going to be equipping it, and then you are going to see more pugs as opposed to GDKPs this time around, but I think that's actually going to make it less common to go on the AH, because in GDKP, you could literally buy this in GDKP and then sell it on the auction house, right? But you're not really going to be able to do that in a lot of soft res and stuff. It's probably going to get rolled off, and they're probably going to make you equip it on the spot, or they're going to kick you, or something like that. So, yeah, I don't see many of these going on the auction house, and if they do go on, they're going to be pretty expensive, because they're kind of rare, because there's actually a lot of drops in Molten Core. Yeah, so just a very strong item. Not really that much to say about it, right? And I think this is something you definitely want to be prioing for sure. Coming down to the weapon slot, this is obviously a fantastic weapon. It's your best weapon in phase 1. In my opinion, it loses a little bit of the prestige that it had, because it's going to be so much easier to get rank 14 now. So eventually, this is like, before you would always use this into like AQ basically, and it was kind of hard to get rank 14. Now a lot more people are going to be getting rank 14, so you're not going to use this into AQ, but it's still a super strong weapon early on. Still like best in class for its phase, right? So, and also the other form of it is not bad for farming and stuff. It's kind of nice that it has that duality that you can just swap into it at any time. So just like a really good weapon to have. But again, like on Horde side, you're probably only running 3 to 4 priests, so that means that you're getting like it's like a 50% chance per week to get this, to get the eye or the hunter leaf or whatever. So you're pretty much gonna get this down the line, especially on Horde. On Alliance, where there's more priests and it's a little bit more annoying, it maybe makes sense to up the prio on this a bit, just because even though you know you're going to get it, it's such a strong upgrade for when you do get it. But it's just, I can't see prioing it very high. But and then again, I am a Horde player, and keep in mind that like not being the first one to get this isn't necessarily terrible, because you know the prices of the eye and stuff, if you don't go out and farm it yourself, is going to drop over time. The price on the plus healing enchant is going to drop over time, right? So it's not a super big deal to have this early on. So I just wouldn't worry about it. Very strong item though, obviously, best item for the phase. Coming into and one more point about this, is a kind of probably a good time to mention this point. So like especially for you guys, if you're not speedrunning or anything, the first instance is very, very easy, right? So a lot of times, some like in like a retail, for example, getting an item like this would be a lot better in a relative sense, because it's going to make things like re-clears easier and progress easier, but you're not going to be doing any progress in Molten Core. You're going to probably just go in there and mostly one-shot things, or you know, you're at least going to down it in the first week you go in there, for most guilds at least. So you're not really having to worry about like using the gear from the raid to progress in the raid, if that makes sense. So keep that in mind when you're kind of like calculating upgrades and stuff like that. Like this stuff is not going to be make or break for you in the instance that you're in, for sure. So just something to keep in mind there. Going on to the glove slot over here, I like these gloves a lot. I wouldn't prio them. I don't think I'd prio them above the bracers necessarily, but they might be like second or third prio, depending on what else we want to prio. So I think these are definitely quite strong. I like the fact that they also contribute to like the set bonus, because you could run this like you have a version here, right, where let's just not put any gloves. Can we do that? We'll put the previous gloves, right? And if you do that, you see we're missing out on the flash heal thing, and that's not like the end of the world, like the 3 set bonus for flash heal, but I feel like you might as well at least grab that bonus because the gloves are good. Right, so it's like you're getting the bonus and you're getting a good piece as well. So the gloves are something I'm definitely interested in, but not like super torn up about getting quick, right? So just something to kind of keep in mind there. Girdle of Prophecy. So this item is it's very strong for the actual phase 1 that it's in. Again, it's a BOE item, so everything I said with Vampirations of Prophecy applies to this. That it might be kind of like hard to get. Another thing too that I didn't mention there is that the goal for MC in most cases is you want to kill as little trash as possible, and all this stuff comes from the trash. So just another thing to keep in mind, that you're not necessarily getting a ton of rolls for this stuff per raid. So that's something to keep in mind there. But ultimately, like, I wouldn't rank getting this super, super high because the stuff that's going to come out in DM is really good. There's like a really good belt there, right? But it is a strong, I think I can actually check that out now because, okay. So you can basically get this, this Whipvine cord here, right? And it's basically better in my opinion, or like very close to being better than the girdle. So just something to kind of keep in mind there. And that's, keep in mind that this is not coming out in Blackwing Lair. It's actually coming out before Blackwing Lair, right? So it's literally like the next phase. So something to think about. And then coming down to Legends of Transcendence. So this one is obviously they're just amazing. They're like really, really strong item in this phase. The interesting thing about this, though, is that they are basically Padre's trousers, and until you get the 3-set bonus, Padre's trousers, in my opinion, they're basically the equiv of this. Like it's almost basically the exact same item because the spirit is not doing a lot for you. But once you get the 3-set, these become, I don't want to say significantly better than Padres, but they're definitely like noticeably better, right? So, and Padres are going to be in phase 2 with Dire Maul, so it is something to consider that you'll have an upgrade path shortly after. But this is still a really good piece of gear, and it's one of the things I would kind of prio for phase 1, trying to get, because it's just harder to get than the head from Onyxia, and it's just better than most of the other items in a relative sense. So something to keep in mind there. This is something to look out for. I think I have it. Yeah, I still have it here. Mm-hmm. And then the Boots of Prophecy. So these are okay. This is something you could definitely drop for like the Faith Healer's boots, and even though I'm not sure if we're gonna have, there's like another version of these, right? Yeah, this is the other one. So like, I don't know if we're gonna have this in the game or if this is later phase, but even if you don't have Boots of Faith Healer in the game or whatever, you can just use the Dragon Rider's boots that drop from Rend, and they're basically very similar to Boots of Prophecy, right? So you don't really have to like go crazy over getting these, but they are, in my opinion, kind of like the best option for the phase slightly overall. Especially, this is another case where like if these are getting you to the 5 sets, then they're definitely better than the Faith Healer boots. But if not, then they're pretty much equiv, or some people would argue they're slightly worse, but I would say they're just a tiny bit better. I'm uncertain if we're actually going to get these Faith Healer boots, to be honest. It says phase 1 here, but like I was saying in the other video, a lot of these are kind of messed up. And I think I tried looking for them. I couldn't find information on it. But I think we only get the Dragon Riders in phase 1, but I'm not sure. But either way, this is not a slot you want to heavily prioritize. So getting to the ring. So you can obviously use 2 cauterizing bands. I mean, this is going to be like hyper unrealistic. Right, but I figured I would put it here as technical BiS. Personally, I don't think that I just really don't think this item is that good. I think it's highly overrated. I'm gonna put Forge Ring Seal in here to kind of juxtaposition the item, right? Very similar plus healing. By the time that plus healing difference goes to the coefficient, you're not noticing anything. And a little bit less intellect, right? And this is like a quest item versus an item you're gonna have to give insane prio for. These are like the bait items, absolutely, in my opinion, like giga bait. There's like probably not a bigger bait item in the entire game. And then once you get, I think I'm gonna have to change the phase again here, but once you get to phase 4. Right, which I guess you could argue is kind of a fair distance away, to be fair, but you get the 2 set here, which is just kind of like insane, because at this time this is essentially like you're gaining the same intellect, right, and you're gaining like 10, like what does it be, like 15 healing power less per ring, essentially, right? Because the other ring, keep in mind, doesn't have any healing power on it, but the 2 set gives you the healing power. So if you average it out, it's like you're getting essentially like 31 healing power per ring. So you're basically losing 15 healing power per ring, but you're keeping the same with the intellect. You're basically getting like an MP5 here, close to 2 MP5. And then when you go to the other ring, where is it? Yeah, you're getting 6 additional MP5 from that ring. So you're kind of getting like almost close to 8 MP5 from the ring set. And you're dropping like 30 healing for it. And the int is essentially the same, right? And it's just like, but it's just a matter of like the prio you're giving up to get the double caught band, and realistically, you're not going to have double caught band anyway. So, what that means is that the difference between the ZG2 set and whatever ring pair you have is going to be even less, most likely. So, yeah, I just think that caught band is like, tends to be like the biggest bait item in the instance. And it's like the iconic item, but it's pretty bait, I would say. Going on to Shard of Scales. So this item is like, it's a tough one, because in some ways it's like the best trinket by far in the game, right? Like early on, and it really is. The thing is that the tricky part is that the drop rate is kind of low. And this is kind of problematic in the sense that if your guild is not doing splits, right, you're not going to get that many Anis. And this is counting if you do the Ani from week 1, right? Now, you are going to get more Anis than MCs, obviously. And to be honest, Ani is very easy, and you can kind of keep doing it, throughout multiple phases. But the drop rate is kind of so low that I just don't see this a lot at all. So if you're not actually like very like number 1 or number 2 prio on this, like if you were to do loot list and you put this as like number 3 prio, for example, right? You may just never get it, because that's kind of how rare it is, especially if there's people that have it at prio number 1 or prio number 2. So I think this is something where if you're going to put it on your list, or you're going to like demand a prio for it, you have to be like the first one in line to get it, the first or the second one. And ideally, you want to be doing split Anis. That'll increase your chances. Split Anis are really nice because they can potentially split you and the next prio guy into different Anis. and that obviously helps quite a lot when getting it. But yeah, it's pretty much just like the best trinket you're gonna have for a bit. You would basically use this and then the Dire Maul one, right? And then you would potentially upgrade to the Dark Moon card eventually in this slot, unless you have something like a Rejuvenating Gem or something of that nature. So it's definitely strong. It's just a matter of is it actually going to drop? And if it doesn't drop, did you kind of like waste your prio on it? If you have like a more of an on-demand prio system, then it's not as big of a problem. So for example, like if you're in the instance and then you're like it drops, and you're like, oh, I'll take that. I'll give up something for it or something, or put me lower down the list, but I'll take that. And you just make it clear you want it, and they give it to you right off the bat. That's kind of good because then it's like dynamic prio. It just sucks like if you have a system like Lootless and you put this high and then it doesn't actually drop, right? Because then it just like you just griefed an entire spot in your list. So I think it's a very good item, but it's just especially for like speed running and stuff. But yeah, it's it can just be tough to actually get the drop. So be warned on that. But it is something that I tend to look out for in the early phase and try to get. And I don't think you get the Dark Moon card until phase 3, and I believe the Dark Moon card is worse, although it's very close. So like basically what your Blackwing layer config would be if you had the best item from that, and this is another argument for why it might not be so insane, is like if inevitably you do get Rejuve Gem, right, then you basically have Rejuve Gem and this item, which is good. But you could kind of replace this item with Dark Moon card, the blue Dark Moon card or whatever. And if you don't get Rejuve Gem, like if you don't have it, then obviously that you could use this and Dark Moon card, right? So you're not wasting anything there. But yeah, if you do get Rejuve Gem, then you could kind of sub a Dark Moon card in here, and it's not going to be like the end of the world in most cases. So a lot of different angles to consider the Shard of Scale, but there's also the fact that this comes out in the next phase, which is not as good, but it's obviously somewhat comparable, right? You're only dropping 5 MP5, and you can get like 2 of those. So just another angle. We keep adding different caveats for this item, but it's an interesting kind of controversial item. I'd definitely be on the lookout, and if you can pick it up without giving up too much for it, I would try and do it. The good thing is a lot of people think this item is dog shit for some reason, which is really weird because there's like no good trinkets in the game for healer at this point. But so if your guild is the one that thinks it's dog shit, go ahead and jump on that. So we will go over to Seal. Okay. Oh, no, not doing that. That's right. So for this slot, you just either would use Second Wind or Briar would read. In terms of which one is better, I think it actually just depends on the cooldown of this. Like, I think in one version of the game, this is like 15 minutes or like 25 minutes or something crazy. I think it's like 15. I've seen another version of it where it's 5 minutes. It's probably still better than read. Even if it is 15 minutes technically, but it's probably like somewhat close. I mean, they're very close items, right? So it just doesn't matter that much which one you have here really, and that's gonna be your round out your trinkets. And then for this slot right here, there's a bunch of stuff on here that shouldn't be on here because we're in phase 4 or whatever, but this is the best wand in my opinion. You can also get a plus healing wand if you want. I think this one is just better because it's usually like really easy to get. And one thing with this is you have to keep in mind that when you have to be the one, I think, that opens the box, because if you're not, I think it binds to the person who opens it. Like, I don't think they might be able to leave it in there, and somebody else can go open it and get it. That was a bug, I think, that was supposed to get fixed. I don't know if it ever got fixed, But yeah, if you want to be safe, just have you be the one that opens the final box to get the reward from the chest in BRD. And yeah, I mean, you could use like a healing wand here, like of the healing, but I think it's easier to just use this one. And like the thing you have to consider is that the worse wand you get, right, then the better this becomes in a relative sense, right? So if you're using like a 20 healing wand, then this is like definitely better. If you're using like a 30 healing wand, then it's, you know, not it's not really like that much different, or like the 30 healing wand becomes pretty good at that point, but it's going to be really expensive because that's the actual like level 60 version of the wand, which, you know, not many actual level 60 wands drop to begin with for greens, and then they're going to be like highly contested on the auction house. So you're better off just using this wand because it's just really really simple to get. And that, I think, is basically all the items. Yeah, that's pretty much everything. You can see like the total stats here. This is with buffs and stuff like that. I'll kind of go in and I will make sure everything's checked off. So we'll have Arcane Intellect, Mark, Fort, Songflower, which I'll have Phase 1, War Chief's Blessing, Wisdom, Compound, Elixir of the Sages. We'll see if there's anything else in here. I don't think you get anything else Phase 1. I'm not even sure if you get the stage thing Phase 1, but I think you might, so I just kept that there. And I think that's everything. And then if we... This is one of the specs that that you'll have, so I have this in there too. You may be the power infusion spec as well, which will require you to remove points from this to basically go into power infusion, which sucks, but so I think those are kind of like the main specs that you would have. But yeah, that should be everything, and then I'll give you like what it'll look like on an alliance character. So we'll go into buffs and we'll add Blessing of Kings, and then we'll add Blessing of Wisdom, and we'll take out War Chief's Blessing. And you can see you just have a much better character because Alliance is overpowered. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll respond because there was a lot to go over in this video. And like one more time, kind of like the things that you want to be targeting, probably bracers, pants, potentially the trinket, potentially the girdle right here, or the gloves. And the one thing I'll say about cauterizing band, the final kind of word, is that if you're sure you're gonna get prio on like this ring from Blackwing Lair, then having a caught band for the off slot is not that bad, right? Because if you have this, then it's a bit awkward to maybe run the ZG2 set, right? And you'd actually want like a strong individual ring. So I think kind of like the best pairing tends to be pure Elementium band, caught band, if you were going to run caught band, right? So just one note on that. I know it's kind of hard on caught band, but it does have some application in picking it up early if you're going to go for pure Elementium band in the next raid, in my opinion. So yeah, that's it, guys. Thank you so much. Like, comment, subscribe if this was helpful, and I will talk to you next time.